One of our group.
All my height is in my legs.
Welcome to Comic Book Crossfire. It has been a while.
We're back-ish.
Ish. We couldn't figure out Google Hangouts, so I had them over.
That's fine.
We had Google over. They're all here.
Yeah.
Yes. They're all behind you. Anyway, we are going to discuss DC Comics Rebirth and how we hate it.
Yes. Boo. You're terrible as always.
Yeah, DC and no. It's been a while since we've done this podcast, and so I'm more than out of practice. But hi, I'm Rob.
I'm Tracie.
I'm Rhea.
And we are the three
The Badland Girls.
we are.
That's how it goes. That's my other podcast.
Anyway, well, to start off with, for those who don't, who hasn't, if you read comics and you're watching a podcast, you probably know about this and this. This is the first time I've seen the back cover, actually. Now, holding this up.
Are you for real?
I am dead serious. I didn't look at the back. Wow, a lot's happening.
So used to not having wraparound covers on things.
Anyway, basically, DC did it again and messed with their history.
But for the better this time, maybe.
I love it. I am head over heels in love with what they're doing. And we will be spoiling the heck out of some things that happen, so if you don't want it to be spoiled, please watch us anyway.
Yes. Let us ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Nobody watches.
Well, I think Tracie she straight up spoiled Rebirth for me and Destiny, and that's what actually got me interested in it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So we're going to be pretty freeform here. We're just going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So.
They asked me to. I didn't.
Okay, she was being a little coy, but then I was like, just say it.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it that you just said then? What was it that you spoiled to them?
She said Watchmen were in it, and that was what hooked us both.
Really? That's what your hook was?
Because I wasn't expecting it. Like, out of everything she said, I was not expecting them to roll that in.
But...
Yeah, I think just the idea of, like, here's how we're going to explain away all of the crazy changes and things that have happened, some of which you don't like, some of which were maybe okay, some of which were fine. But just the idea that, like, hey, surprise, that was all done from the hands of
a god of sorts.
Of Dr. Manhattan and the Watchmen.
At least that's something confirmed, but definitely...
It's definitely the Watchmen. It's, presumably, it hints pretty heavily that it's Dr. Manhattan. Plus, he has the power set that he would be able to just mold.
But Dr. Ozzy or
Ozymandias is hinted at a lot. There's a character that has actually been showing up in the Superman books for the last year, but we
didn't care because we didn't care for the Superman.
How could we have possibly inferred any Watchmen connection to a character like that when it was just this weird cloaked guy that was showing up in Jeff Johns' Superman books? But now it seems very logically that he's Ozymandias. He's always looking at a lot of computer monitor screens and
manipulating.
There were some sharp people that even noticed as far back as that his logo is similar to the logo used on the.
It is. Now you've said it.
What do you sell in the
the perfume?
The perfume.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So, do you guys think they're just gonna pick up, like, from where Watchmen ended? So, like, Rorschach is dead?
Well, it's hard to say, because that's the most solid Watchmen hint in the book, is when Batman picks out the little smiley face button, which belonged to the comedian, also a dead character, but then Rorschach ends up with it. But I think they're the two characters most associated with the smiley face button are Rorschach and comedian. So I don't know how that, and especially since it's sort of left in the Batcave as a sort of clue. That's a very Rorschach sort of thing to do, is leave obscure clues around, right?
And again, that occurrences that happen in this book, we have Blue Beetle back, which is also an anagram for the analog. Analog, sorry, did I say? An analog for Owlman and Blue Beetle.
Yeah. Well, the other way around. But yeah, all the Watchmen characters were all analogs for the Charles.
Did you also notice
characters.
that I doubt if I can find it, but that when we saw Captain Atom, who is definitely Dr. Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the New 52 Captain Atom that we had seen with like the weird mohawky.
Oh.
It was more the 52 or the pre-52.
I don't. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can find it, but that was something I thought, like, oh wait, he doesn't look like. Anyway, there are, besides the Watchmen references, there are wonderful things that happen in this book. Because actually, I think the Watchmen stuff is probably my least. I wouldn't say like I didn't care about it. That's not what made me love this book.
Oh no, same. But I can see that was the hook that made
a lot of people go.
Yeah. But no, definitely. I think you and I will both agree. Like the real meat of the book is the return of Wally West.
There was just a lot of heartfelt, not very familiar with Wally, but I felt like, who wrote that, Jeff Johns?
Yeah.
I felt like he gave enough of a crash course on who he was,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like the missing history that I feel like,
Yeah.
Not so much.
Then
The New
again,
52.
I couldn't tell you the last book that Captain Atom appeared in the New 52, though, so I don't know how long his appearance has been.
I just feel like that there was a lot, when I read it, I mean, yeah, the Watchmen thing hooked me because I liked that comic,
Mm-hmm.
but I also like, just the stuff about Wally and just like how, he was trying to reach out and nobody remembered him. I thought that was
Including
really,
his wife.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was really sad. And then his reunion with Barry, the only person who remembered him, I thought was really touching. And I don't know, there was just a lot of little tidbits in there that I thought were kind of interesting. My favorite being, which obviously this was a big tease for their own comic, but Green Arrow and Black Canary kind of meeting, and then you saw them sitting in their room, and there was like, I think, there was like a caption that said, some people don't even know what they're missing, even though they know something's missing, and I thought that was kind of cool. Just kind of like the tease of just like, oh, all these relationships and, friendships that you miss, they're all coming back. I like that. I like friendship stories. I like building up these things again.
And I thought they couldn't have done it in a, I guess, better way as far as just...
And not having a reboot.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a reboot.
Yeah, the tricky chore of, the very... I mean, they that's just directly their mission of, hey, yeah, something's missing. You're missing things that made these characters, so special to you, and something just hasn't been quite right about the New 52, but it doesn't throw away everything that's been done. And I thought that was this is probably about the nicest way they could do it, where...
It kind of felt like blending what was good about before, and in what still works about the new.
Mm-hmm. It's a very have your cake and eat it too attempt as far as we'll give you some of these things that you missed, but
we're not going to wipe the slate clean.
Yeah. So the people, because
New 52 was very successful.
Yeah, for whatever qualms that any fans like us had about some of the changes in the New 52. It still brought in a number of new readers, and I think, there's people that the New 52 is DC to them, whereas, those of us who still, clamor for...
Well, and maybe that should be our setup here.
Pre-Flashpoint.
I have been very disenfranchised with DC as a whole. With maybe the exception of Snyder's Batman, nothing has been consistent. I'm not saying there hasn't been good, but nothing has been consistently good from DC for at least 3 years for me.
I like Snyder's Batman, but then I reached a point where it just felt like it was too much. And I felt like...
It felt like it was constantly epic, and sometimes you don't want Batman to be constantly epic.
It just felt like it was...
But I always thought it was good.
I mean, like, it wasn't bad, but I just felt like it was like, we are at 11 non-stop.
That's exactly
and
what
I'm just like, holy,
that's true.
Holy shit.
And to me, Batman should be ground level. The best Batman stories are... at least in my opinion, I think where Batman is the detective, he's the
I like
sleuth,
that.
he's the... I still love him, the superhero, but I think the best Batman stories are ground level.
Yeah. I mean, I got into Batman through Snyder's run. I think it's good to point out.
Snyder was hitting home runs. Like I said, I think he was the most consistently good DC New 52.
Yeah, I don't know. I totally into Batman 11. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was great from top to bottom. But, yeah.
So when did the Batgirl kind of, like, how far in did that happen, the Batgirl change? Because the New
52 Batgirl?
Yeah, because I know that it started with Gale, and I read her.
And that was right off the bat.
Yeah, and I liked it. It was, again, it had that kind of, like, I do feel like a lot of the New 52 titles
That's something
just had
that didn't
this,
go
like,
back, is because Oracle
let's
is
get
always
as
a favorite
dark
character
as
of mine.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that was...
And you lost Oracle. And we still don't... Do we know if there really was an Oracle?
Yeah, she was Oracle for a time.
Okay, so they're not discounting that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, and then so how far in before they kind of added, that new team came in and kind of added some levity to Batgirl?
How many...
About halfway through
how
the
many
New 52's
years has
existence.
New 52, is this...
The 6th year, I think. This would be the 6th year.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, man, okay.
52 issues.
Cool, alright, Jesus.
Don't make me do the math. The 52
No.
divided by 5. I'm pretty sure it's about 5 or 6 years.
Alright, then, what are they... Have they only done a year of Batgirl and Burnside, or more than that?
I don't know, I
I
thought
want
they
to say
did
about a
more.
year and a half.
Maybe a year and a half, so...
Enough we've had figures of her.
Mm-hmm.
I did like their Batgirl and Burnside, though.
It was great, and it was, like you said, it was a breath of fresh air from... Yeah, that's a large problem that I think we've all had with the New 52 was its just overabundance of darkness and grim and gritty.
And lots of legacy.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where...
How many Robins fit in a 5-year span?
Yeah, where Rebirth touches them. But I mean, I'm talking about...
but that was a big problem with
purely
it.
about tone. And that's why Burnside, because that doesn't really touch on legacy at all, but the Burnside thing was a breath of fresh air as far as they had a really fun take on Batgirl that didn't, they still told serious stories. It wasn't done like a comedy, but it was a lot lighter and even, dare I say, a girlier approach by just letting, having an artist like Babs Tarr on the book where, she brought things to the title that your typical male DC artist doesn't handle as far as, everyone's always, everybody dresses cute, here's some fun anime expressions sometimes, just overall, like,
here's a midriff.
Even the coloring style, is,
very bright.
Yeah, and I meant that in, like, just in the best qualities of just having kind of a more feminine approach to Batgirl and a younger approach.
Yeah.
I feel like Batgirl, even though, like, Gail Simone was writing it for so long, and I want to just assume that it was editorial mandate, but I always felt like her stuff, it was just all way too dour, and I couldn't stick with it, like,
Or even her picking up Secret Six.
I know, I feel, I don't want this to be about that, but necessarily, but
that's like Secret Six.
Yeah, they're
pre-New 52.
Yeah, creators who
was so wonderful.
Yeah, creators and franchises who were some of my favorites prior to New 52. I felt were all being weighed down over this overall sense of like darkness that was being enforced, or.
Let's not talk about all the bad then. Let's talk about what Rebirth kind of. At least in the initial story, we get Aqualad back, which I didn't catch the first time I read it. Which
and by Aqualad, we mean the Aqualad we barely had before that Jeff Johns introduced in Brightest Day.
Brightest Day, which
the one who ended up having more of a life in the Young Justice cartoon than he ever got to have in the comics.
It was a wonderful character.
And he's also gay in this.
Yeah,
is he? Yeah,
yep, which is a big change for the character, not only to have him back introduced into the New 52, but also with a very clear homosexuality.
There was a lot of books in this Rebirth that I don't know, there was something about that Rebirth comic that was just like, this is really interesting and fun. I want to read everything, even stuff I don't know. Like, I don't know jack about the Titans. I love that one. I know it was just a comic about, like, oh, we remember you, and I'm like, this is great.
That's kind of what I told Tracy when I read it. I was like, not a lot of plot. It was more like a reunion. It was like, and in a way, those are my favorite issues of X-Men. When I think of the baseball episodes, the softball in the back. This was kind of the equivalent.
Well, and I was telling Rhea, those are also my favorite issues of Titans, because the Titans that I was into, I wasn't the Wolfman Titans. My Titans was Devin Grayson. And her first issue of Titans is just everybody in a restaurant eating and talking, and that's what hooked me on it. And then I went backwards from that to read the Titans Young Justice crossover. Yeah, and all that stuff.
That's later than I was thinking of.
But yeah, just like I just like them as like they're all old, just lifelong friends, like.
And literally, I mean, who've been through hell because all their mentors are professional heroes.
Yeah,
and
I agree with you. Like just reading that Titans Rebirth, which I wasn't not at all interested in until I knew that it had to do with Wally's return.
And I wasn't a big fan of Brett Booth. I mean, I have been in the past, but again, he's one of those that New 52 really made me kind of sour.
Yeah, same.
But I like that issue.
Yeah, I'm down to check out at least the next few issues and see where it goes. And I just loved how they just tackled, just Wally's and his continued struggle to get his friends and family to remember him.
Wally is one of the biggest missing links from the... losing Wally was sad to me. Not that I don't like what they're doing with the new Wally, and now we have both, and I'm great with that.
Again, like their ability to keep the best
of old and new
of both worlds. You're not erasing this new Wally West that we've had, who's just barely gotten a chance to spread his wings, and who also is now finding a life in other media since they introduced similar Wally on the Flash TV show. And they don't discount each other at all, and not even in a weird, like, this is Earth 2 Wally, and this is, like, no, it's just
happened to be
in the simplest explanation possible. Oh yeah, they both were named after the same uncle.
No.
Like, that's perfect, and just there's no dumb comic book convolution involved.
Yeah,
it's just,
it seemed like a very simple answer, and it works.
Yeah, they're both in the West family, and they just happen to, their parents named them both after the same
nice
uncle.
red herring on all the covers of the Rebirth that you see. You see the other Wally.
Well, yeah, because he's still part of the push forward, because he hasn't...
But I didn't know that we were going to get...
No, not necessarily.
And that was a nice surprise opening the book, like, whoa!
Oh.
My Wally is there.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't live in the internet like I do, and I pretty much had it teased that Wally was back, like...
Well, that was one of the nicer surprises, because I had no idea going into this that
well,
I was
nice
getting
you got to have that.
No. Tracy doesn't get to have those things.
I don't.
I also, I liked the Wonder Womans because I just like how they kind of hit head on the biggest controversy about Wonder Woman changing her origin story. And so, like, it's not resolved yet, but the fact that he tackled both, like, her being brought to life from clay, or is her dad Zeus, and just like, what's the truth? We're gonna get down to it. And I just thought that was kind of interesting, because that, for me personally, that was like my biggest beef with the whole Wonder Woman thing, was just them rewriting her origin story to something more stupid.
Yeah, and it was a great run. Again, like when we talk about Snyder, I feel like, I mean, it wasn't as long a run.
From beginning to end, Snyder's was...
Well, you mean because it lasted longer?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes, because if...
I
can go Morrison on action.
Yeah, Azzarello
too.
and Chiang had a really nice run.
I'm not saying that there weren't good runs. You can go Swamp Thing, you can go Animal Man,
totally,
all of those had. But I'm saying from beginning to the end of New 52, Batman.
Oh yeah, Snyder's is the only one that even lasted the length of.
That's what I mean. I'm not saying there wasn't good New 52. There was good New 52.
Oh yeah.
how long did that Finch run go?
A year, maybe?
Oh, a year. And it was really unpopular, right?
Yeah.
All I saw was just, like, negative stuff for it.
It started, like, off the bat, it got a lot of negative press because in the interviews they were giving, they were all downplaying, like, oh, no, we wouldn't call it feminist. She's not feminist. And
she's a feminist icon.
I know, yeah. So
I love
right off the
their
bat.
incorporation of the movie costume.
Yes, that was
I love
really cool.
that. Because I really have loved the movie costume. The brightness of it, yet still realistic as a Roman type of gladiator feel. Yeah. I really...
Well, and that's, bringing up that, like, in a lot of spaces with Rebirth, they are incorporating more movie synchronicity. Like, pretty much the entirety of the Suicide Squad now is flat out the movie Suicide Squad.
Superman's costume looks more like
Superman's
Cobbles.
is pretty much exactly, what he's wearing in the movies now.
And Batman, you can fudge anywhere.
Yeah, ironically, Batman got a new costume just 2 issues before Rebirth started, and everyone else got their new costume.
I hate the symbol.
Are you really? Oh, I don't.
It's
I don't
the same
mind
thing as the Spider-Man with the glowing.
Oh,
it reminds me of some kind of rip-off of some.
Spider-Man's new costume is great, and I don't mind this Batman one at all. My favorite thing about Batman's costume actually is I like the purple under the cape.
Oh, that I don't mind.
Yeah,
because that's kind of a throwback to the original costume. But
yeah,
it's the line around the shield. The
I don't love that, but it's not a deal breaker for me.
It's going to be in all the cartoons that way now too, isn't it?
I don't know.
It was in the cartoon. I think that's the first time I saw it. Was in that. You know those short, straight to DVD, very kid-oriented Batman's.
Oh.
Because that's where I first. It's.
He had that before they did this in the comics, though.
But that's the symbol. I mean, it's the bat.
It's a more elongated bat on that one.
And it breaks the shield.
Yeah, I don't remember what the toy line's called, but it's the Batman toy line that was being sold.
It seems like the only Batman I'm seeing out there in the newer forms. Anyway, some artists are out better than others, and I'm okay with it. Gary Frank did fine.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Has Etta Candy been black before?
In the New 52, she was black. Okay. But when she was first introduced, she was also skinny.
Why? Why did they do that? They did.
I know they
Amanda
did.
Waller gonna
they
be
did
bigger again?
Yeah, she's already.
Okay,
yeah.
I was just like, that was the weirdest thing to me.
She's already put on some weight, even in the.
I like the way you phrase that.
Even in because they did the Jim Lee did an April Fool's one shot that was sort of setting up the Rebirth run that he's going to be doing with the same writer, and Amanda Waller's in that, and she's already looks more fuller figured than she has. Yeah. Okay, good. Because that was one thing that was just so mind-blowingly why. Oh, yeah. Like, why, out of every, like, why? Why? So weird. Yeah, it was weird to do it to Etta. Like, the 2 most prominent, like, full-figured female characters. Yeah. I'm hearing it, too.
Go ahead.
Okay. In comics, not even just DC, but just in comics, like, you think of, like, full-figured women in comics, and, like, Amanda Waller and Etta Candy have to be in the conversation. And they were both just instantly slimmed down in the New 52, which is so dumb. Oh my god. And then they feel like they almost try to go, you know, hey, we're diversifying. Etta's black now, but she's skinny. But she's black. God, that's so annoying. So I like that in Rucka's Rebirth run that's just started, that they're keeping Etta as a black woman, but she's back to being more Etta's size. Which is cool. That was one of the things that when I found out about Etta through, I only found out about her through images from the new Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot. And played by Lucy Davis of The Office. Yeah, a lot of people said that, oh god, the hideous judgmental thing, like, said she was unrecognizable. Oh, and I'm just like, I just think she just gained weight. Yeah. And I'm just like, I think that's kind of fine. If she gained weight, and now she's Etta Candy, so fuck off. And if you read interviews with her, she struggles with.
Oh, I know
yeah.
that. Yeah, I read a bunch of stuff with her about like her struggling, and I just hope that she's come to peace with herself.
Yeah, I just hope
her weight.
she's happy.
Mm-hmm.
My only thing with those photos wasn't. It was just there's no. She's not smiling in any of the pictures, but they're all candid pictures. So I'm hoping that when we see a trailer and stuff, because I want her to be just big, boisterous fun Etta Candy from the comics.
That would be fun.
That's the best, and she's not. New 52 Etta isn't that yet. She's like this government person, which is fine. It's a different version and she exists, but like the best thing about classic Etta Candy is she's just this very, she just likes to live out loud and
loves candy. That's her name.
No,
that's
yeah,
her name,
no
right?
apologies. Yeah,
That's like my idol. Looking at this spread Rob laid out, trying to think of what else I want to talk about. Okay, so can you explain to me how Superman ended up the old Superman ended up in the new Superman world?
So
okay.
As part of the cherry picking of what fans do and do not want in their comics, apparently it was realized that no one really quite got on board with New 52 Superman.
Because he was a jerk and because he dated Wonder Woman and it was weird.
Yeah. All of those things, I don't know, like, sexy bachelor Superman just never seems like a fun thing. And I don't know what the point of keeping him as far apart from Lois as possible ever really
I know that pissed
accomplished.
off so many people.
Yeah, so it feels like everyone just kind of struggled with what to do with New 52 Superman, and then come this event called Convergence, which a cynical point of view would say that event was created only to fill time while DC was transferring their offices from New York to Los Angeles.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because they put all their regular books on pause, introduced a bunch of new books that were only going to last for 2 issues apiece, and then by completely different creative teams, including, like, digging up writers who haven't worked for DC or really that much in comics in years, and like, hey, you're not doing anything, you're free, right? You write these.
Oh my god.
And then also, as sort of to appease all the fans who haven't stopped griping about New 52, by giving them 2 months of having your old toys back again. So that's what Convergence was.
You said it was awful.
Some of the minis were fun.
Okay.
The story itself was stupid and pointless, and it felt like they were just filling in time. But the best thing about it was it did give me back some of my toys. So I got to have 2 issues of The Question, Renee Montoya, as written by Greg Rucka and drawn by Cully Hamner. That's all I could want in the world, because that's something they still have barely fixed in the New 52, is where's my Renee Montoya? They brought her back in Detective a few months ago, and then just, I don't know, nothing. And she's definitely not making out with Kate Kane, so who cares what she's doing if she's not doing that.
Well, I have high hopes for her future of making out with Kate Kane.
I do too. But, so in that, as part of Convergence, which was just revisiting a bunch of past eras of DC Comics as though they never stopped existing. So everybody kind of, all these little worlds still existed. So like, oh, here's the world where, the Legion of Superheroes from the 1960s are still doing their thing. Here's the world where the Superman and Lois from pre-Flashpoint are still around, still married, and hey, now Lois is pregnant. So it's like if Flashpoint had never happened, if New 52 had never happened, and the previous Superman and Lois were still living their life on some world elsewhere, And so it was like that for a bunch of characters, and then specifically for those two, like I said, they were, you know, their reveal was, oh, well, this, you know, the Lois and Clark we used to know, Lois is pregnant during this whole
we're getting this
event. Yeah, and so at the end of that 2 issues, she has their son, but then it's done, and you know, everybody gets put back or whatever, and people, they just dust their hands of it. They gave the villain of Convergence his own series for some reason. I don't think
the villain?
Telos, whatever.
Yeah.
Did anybody care?
I don't think so.
It lasted right.
Okay.
It was terrible.
6 issues, maybe 9. I don't know. I don't think
it was still I thought it was still on the shelf at Ground Zero.
Well, yes, because no one's buying it. I don't think it made it into the double digits. I would be very interested to hear from anyone who was actually reading that book.
Why the hell did they choose that one?
Because he's not a compelling character. He was just...
He's basically a Brainiac.
Yeah, he was Dime Store Brainiac who decided to play a Beyonder and have a little secret war. So in the midst of giving that villain his own series for no reason, they also gave
Superman.
that Clark and Lois their own miniseries, where it turned out that during Convergence, like, they couldn't go back to their own world. Their world was destroyed in Convergence, so Telos transports them to the New 52 world and spares their lives. So our original...
The one who died in
Lois
Superman number
mm-hmm.
75.
Yeah, the Superman that we've been reading for decades was now hiding out in the New 52, grew a beard so that he wouldn't be recognized. He and Lois went and moved to a farm somewhere.
Lumberjack Clark.
Yeah. She was writing books under a pseudonym.
And they named their son Jonathan.
And he just grew up. He got to grow up in this farm not knowing that his dad was ever Superman. And meanwhile, Clark was
moonlighting and superheroing on the side.
He was secretly going around because he recognized, like, you know, this world's very similar to our world, and it has its own Superman and Batman, but they're not, you know, it's not the Bruce I knew, these are not the people I knew, but they're very similar. Some things happened the same, some things happened similar, some things happened very differently, because he's coming from a world where he already knows all these things, he's using his knowledge to investigate the New 52, where it's like, yeah, like, I know that my Lex was a scumbag, but this world seems to still think this Lex Luthor is an okay guy, I need to keep an eye on him, but he hasn't done anything outright villainous yet. But yeah, like, I'm gonna, you know, well, in my world, Hank Henshaw becomes the evil cyborg, so I'm gonna see what this world's Hank Henshaw's up to. And then he was, like, secretly imprisoning a bunch of villains that he fought in his world, that he was able to...
He's find and Loganing it in a weird way.
Yeah, kinda, yeah. He was able to find these guys before the New 52 Superman ever even had to deal with them. Because of all his knowledge of, you know, like, oh, I remember...
What could happen.
Yeah. So doing that, and keeping a weird secret prison, which is kind of strange, and which Lois didn't know anything about. But they were doing that, otherwise pretty much living on the DL, until the New 52 Superman was starting to die due to
a number of things.
One of which was severe kryptonite radiation poisoning.
How'd that happen?
Well, they took into account what happened in Justice League.
Yeah, it was like...
They took into account what had happened in Hitch's Justice League of America.
Yeah, there were like 3 major things degrading his body, all like 3 major events in a row that really took a number on him.
Yeah, and so they just kind of said, well, with everything piling up,
And it was just too much, and it was killing him.
And it was an excellent story, and I didn't expect
It was really good. It was the most emotion I've felt for New 52 Superman since Morrison's run,
Yeah.
and it was him.
I forgot how much I loved Morrison's run until we started talking
Well,
about
that's because they pretty much ignored
Magic.
everything that happened in it once it was done.
They didn't even know what they were going to get when they had the... That was another part of my
Mhm.
problem with New 52, was George Perez had no idea what Morrison was going to do.
Yeah, there was no consistency, and everybody felt like they were tippy-toeing around each other. And I think that's a major thing that's changed now with Rebirth.
I think it's Jeff Johns said, you're going to do this, or you go in this
Yeah,
direction,
nothing-
you go in this
it was-
direction.
And I was thinking about this earlier when thinking about we were going to have this conversation tonight, and I was thinking about how it had to be so weird for them, and how tied their hands must have felt when New 52 started, where you're doing a fresh new start
But not.
for most characters. Some characters still, like the Batman books all kept the same continuity
Green
that they
Lantern
had.
did.
And the Green Lantern, basically all the books that Snyder and Johns worked on kind of got to keep what they were doing, more or less. And then the fact that they were working on this protracted, superheroes have only been out in the world for 5 years. So it's like having to figure out, like, how does all this stuff fit
Yeah, we have
into
5 Robins.
5 years,
Robins,
yeah,
and
right.
there's-
and all this stuff, and it just felt like nobody was really comfortable or free to explore stuff. So, because I was thinking about how, with like The Flash, that was another run that I thought when it started it was good. I liked what Brian Buccellato and Francis Manapul were doing. It was probably the most lighthearted book in the New 52. So it was very fun and colorful, and I thought they did some decent stories in it. Nothing great, but it was enjoyable. But it occurred to me how different that book felt from
Johnson's.
everything else,
Oh,
and also just like how like it didn't feel like it was happening in the DC universe, I guess. And that's kind of like immediately when Rebirth, like right away in the first Rebirth issue of The Flash, you have him thinking about how, like, hey, what people don't think about very much is, hey, both me and Batman, we're both detectives. And
Yeah.
we connect on that level, and we're, and just stuff like, I'm just thinking, like, I don't think the New 52 Flash ever once thought about
Yeah.
Batman. And stuff like that. And not that I need to have,
but there was
everything
that's
feel-
what Marvel has been
Mhm.
doing very successfully with
Mhm.
each of their campaigns, the Marvel Now, that it really feels like it's a thematic, universal setting that maybe, like, you might have a more lighthearted book, you might have a dark book,
Yeah.
you might have X-Men doing their own thing, or being slowly written out, the Fantastic Four, whatever, but at least it would feel like you have a theme, and every writer was going in that direction. When they first did Marvel Now, the first thing you and I kind of pointed out was there's a lot of time travel stuff going on in every one of these books, and eventually kind of paid off with Secret Wars. I don't know if it, but it still was interesting, and it was very thematic.
like the Age of Ultron comic book was built off of that, where like time is broken because of the stuff that was but like just things acknowledging things, I guess. And there was a lot of
where DC has not been doing
I love
that
nobody
for a long
acknowledging anything, and everything was happening like for the longest time. Justice League was working like 5 years behind everything else that was happening, and like some of that's fine if you want to like, oh, we're filling in gaps, but gaps never really felt like they were filled because it still felt like there were a lot of things I didn't understand
It felt
about.
like 7 different universes going on at the same
How
time.
did this guy get to this place, and how does this work? And it just
How
felt
come
weird.
Hal's here, but he's not here?
Yeah, and is that trouble of they want to be able to write these comics like they've been written for the last several decades, but then, but also these guys have never met before, or or they're not sure if they did now. It's like, oh, so is this the first time that Green Lantern met whoever, and we don't know. And
So, what Rebirth books have you read?
I've read, let's take a look into the collection.
There's a bunch of comics spread out on the floor right now.
For reference, for visual reference for us.
I'm just looking down at this pit of lava. No.
Did you read any of the Supermans?
I did. I read all of the Supermans.
I know I missed a little when I was upstairs.
And then I read The Flashes, and I read Wonder Woman, and I read Green Arrow.
Did you read Detective?
Yes.
This was really good. And
Yeah.
This was one I didn't want to like. Because, I don't know, I can't tell you really why, I just was like, something about it I didn't want to like.
See, I was the other way, where I knew I was going to love Detective. I didn't want to like Batman.
And that Batman was actually really good, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman I liked, and I read Batman and I read tie-ins. I liked Detective Comics because I just love that Batwoman's so mean. I think that's what I said to Tracy.
I like the way that Batman set her up to be this drill sergeant.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's right, be mean to these teens. And I was like, that made me so happy.
The best line in there was, Batman trusts you, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like her kind of difference in style, and then was it Tim Drake as the Robin, or and he's like
Red Robin.
Yeah, and he's like, well, we've been doing stuff a lot. And she's like, flapping your gums, like trying to kind of like, we've been with Batman for a while. This is not how they do it. And she's just like, zzz, and I just love that she's kind of no nonsense.
And yeah, one of the many elements that has filled me with such hope for Rebirth is seeing a character like Batwoman, like Kate Kane, revitalized, reborn, as she's being in this book, because she's a character that has suffered a lot in the New 52. So
spoilers. So is Cassie.
Those characters didn't suffer. They just didn't exist.
Batwoman
has suffered.
Yes,
they gave
you're
her.
right.
She had series, and they drove it into the ground.
Yep.
They had her raped by a vampire.
They did?
Yes.
Oh, don't bring that
she was hypnotized into having sex with it, but that's rape. Okay, sorry.
Especially since she's a lesbian. And...
Well, a female vampire.
Oh,
Rob,
okay.
Women can be vampires too.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said him.
You misogynist piece.
I thought you said him.
No. I said vampire.
Shit. But I
know the coolest vampire ever is Jubilee. So.
This podcast is over.
Shots fired.
This podcast is over.
Before Tracy told me about the vampire stuff, though, the one thing that I remember making the news is how her creators walked off the book because they wouldn't let her get married, and it looked really bad because then it kind of came out that we don't want any of our new superheroes to be tied down.
Yeah,
it's
everybody's got to be
sexy
and single.
It was like, what the fuck, and it was just awful. So I do agree with Tracy, but one of the biggest things I like about her little boot camp is that with her discussion with her dad in the beginning, and he's like, you need me because you need structure, and she's like, Dad, I don't need you, because obviously
I love their
tense
relationship.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, but I like, he said, you were raised as a military kid, and she's like, well, you know how that went, because if you don't know, she left the military because
she was first dishonorably discharged.
Yeah, because she refused to lie that she was gay, and this was back before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed.
Yeah.
And, they were willing to cover it up, but she refused to do it. And so I think it's cool where she acknowledges that the military was wrong, but also doesn't, they don't cast it aside. It's a big part of her character, and it's really what makes her different from Batman. And that's why it's fun to see her be hard on these kids, because they're used to a different way of
And it's
being.
also nice to see Batman kind of acknowledge that, you have earned the right to be this position.
Yeah.
And that I do want you as my second in command versus a Robin.
Because for the longest time she felt so outside of the Bat clique. They'd team up on occasions, but she was never really part of, it always just felt like any time that she showed up to fight, a mutual threat, it was always just kind of begrudgingly of I'm here to help out, but I don't like what you guys do.
I have a question. I just found out from reading this that they were cousins. I didn't even know that.
That was a great moment, by the way.
Was that the first time that they revealed that they knew who each other were?
It was set up.
Bruce didn't know that she knew.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if she ever has said that she knew in anything she's been in New 52.
In the New 52? Who's to say?
Because the only one I'm familiar with pre-New 52 is that run that is it Rucka? Who wrote that?
Yes.
Where that Alice in Wonderland type villain
more or less co-created the character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the only interaction you see with Batman in that is he just comes in and he's like, hey, there's this new thing in town, I'm just going to let you take care of it. And that kind of established that she was outside of his little Bat family.
Yeah.
But
it was, I mean, we as readers have known they were cousins from day one because she was introduced in a miniseries called 52, which was kind of the first time the number 52 became important to DC Comics as a whole. And the only reason they called it that was because it was a book that ran
Came out
for
once a week.
Once a week for, a year. And I think there's maybe been stuff in the comics that kind of established that, like, the Kane family name maybe before...
Well, and Betty Kane is the original Batwoman back in the golden age of comics.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I think that's when they first said her name, I was like, well, what a really cool way to pull back that...
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that was kind of that link between them.
Mm-hmm.
And
It was a great moment in the book when he took off the mask and said, I am your cousin. I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was great.
It was cool. I like that. I like those two characters, and I think it's kind of interesting to see them working together as such.
Clayface. Who freaking knew that Clayface could be fun?
Oh
my gosh! I was like, when I saw Clayface on the cover, I'm like, what does he do? What a great incorporate. Tinian. I mean, we know he's good. We know Tinian can write. But this was a really cool concept.
I've been a big fan of his stuff for a while as a writer, and that's why I was excited to see him get to actually
Snyder protege. You
cut
want to
loose.
call him?
Yeah. To cut loose on a book like this, and I think what makes Detective Comics so fun is that it's sort of like if it's sort of like X-Men in the Bat family.
Exactly.
They have their own little danger room.
Yeah, the danger room.
Which is great, and it's just like these bunch of
what was
greenhorn heroes being trained how to operate like a team.
Code name again?
Was it Orphan?
Yeah, that's it. I like that.
Was that her name before? Did she ever have that?
She was a Batgirl.
She was Batgirl.
She never had like a moniker.
And then Black Bat for a while.
Yeah, then she was Black Bat.
Okay.
And I never liked the name Black Bat.
What's Stephanie going as?
Spoiler. She's
spoiler.
spoiler.
Okay, spoiler. Okay.
Yeah, but it's nice to have like kind of this home now for characters like Spoiler and Cassandra Cain, who were off the table for much of the New 52, and now to be part of this fun team and to have Batwoman back in a place where she's
and I feel like that's
great character again.
That is the Tim Drake I know.
No, totally, yeah.
Tim Drake.
He's still Red Robin, but costume-wise and the way he's written, it feels more like classic Tim Drake than he has felt in the entirety of the New 52.
Oh yeah,
And even we get the fun bonus also now of they're rekindling the Tim Drake Stephanie Brown romance.
Yeah, they picked right up on that, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about the Greens of Arrows and how Ollie has upgraded Beyonce style from an old liberal to a social justice warrior. I can't believe someone called him he called himself a social justice warrior. And I was like, oh shit. I'm just like, I loved it.
That felt like good old Wally to me.
Yeah.
That's the...
Yeah, more of bringing back what was missing or what was loved of the characters.
And you know what voice I heard while reading this? The Justice League cartoon Ollie voice.
Yeah,
that's the voice I heard.
That's where I get it from, because in the Justice League Unlimited,
one.
he always used to say, I might just be an old liberal, to the point where I actually asked Tracie, does he call himself an old liberal in this comic? And then I saw it, he called himself a social justice warrior.
SJW.
Oh my god, we're blessed.
Yeah.
Hashtag blessed.
And that's another character I felt who's been just really mishandled in the New 52.
What happened? Wasn't that rewriting of what happened on the island that kind of shaped things?
No, not even, because I feel like that didn't make much difference to me. It was just the character.
Sorry, Dad sense was tingling.
That's alright. He's got dad things. just, I don't know, they, like, just from the get-go, he was just this younger Ollie, and it feel like just by virtue of making him young meant that he didn't have all these, like,
they were really trying to make it, like, TV
hard
show-ish,
values.
but
even,
not.
Well, even that, I mean, like, because I think New 52 still predates the show. It did kind of go into, like, how the show started, and then once the show became popular, they did specifically try to incorporate elements of the show into the comics by making Ollie's mom a character, which was never much of a thing, and, like, they full on just introduced Diggle into the comics, and stuff like that. And they gave
on meta.
Yeah, they gave him a sister, though not like Thea.
I love Thea.
But just things like that, and, like, those were good steps in at least making the book entertaining again. But it just felt very directionless, and
I gave up much sooner than you did. What didn't they do the clans? That was a cool
I liked
twist.
that stuff. I thought Jeff Lemire's run was the best the book was, but it was still a protracted run, and
you're a pretty hardcore. At least since Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Oh, I consider. I mean, just my
Smith
in my DC fandom, I feel like Oliver Queen is in my top 5 favorite DC characters, and Green Arrow just meant a lot to me for most of my DC collecting years. I started with the Kevin Smith run, but then I was consistent.
I know you fell in love with
from that day on.
What's his name?
I just I was kind of sad that the show didn't really pick up on as much of the liberal leanings as even the cartoon did.
My only hang-up with the show.
I can think of just one episode, and it was in the first season, that even slightly touched on his kind of liberal leanings. And I think a big part of it has to do with the fact that the creators themselves admit they were heavily influenced by Nolan's movies. Like the comic they were influenced by the comic by Diggle about the people on the island, but then they also said we really liked Nolan's movies. And of course that's changing because the show is getting way less realist and more fantastic, more superhero-y, but it does bum me out that Oliver Queen doesn't go around saying he's an old liberal. Yeah. And because, like, Tracie and I were talking about this with Rebirth, but the thing about Oliver is, like, he's super liberal, but he's also a white, rich dude, and Dinah calls him on his shit, but then he checks it. He checks his privilege all the time. Like, he was showing her, I think, in that...
The hospital.
He's like, look at all this stuff we did, and then she was just like, boy, bye. And then he started to kind of reevaluate it, like, almost immediately. And I think that's the cool thing about Oliver Queen.
I do like them together, but I also like the freshness of them together right now is really... It's what I loved about them in the Justice League cartoon when they were first starting to... I have that feel all over again with this book.
And totally, yeah.
And the art in that...
It's great.
That's something else I was going to say about the thing about Rebirth is I haven't had a bad artist other than, I didn't care for that Green Lantern book and it wasn't like it was bad, it just...
There's some that works better for me than others, but I like...
It did feel like he was kind of more of a tryout type.
There's some fresher... I guess some different things being done. Like just the...
But some of these established guys are knocking it out of the park.
I really, in every single issue of the Rebirth, they have huge spreads of everything that's coming. Like, in every Batman, they have a huge...
That was something else I was going to point out.
Yeah, they have a huge ad for 2 comics that I'm totally going to get. The Birds of Prey, which is just Huntress screaming, which I'm just like, just the fact that she's there, I don't even care about anything else.
I didn't think I wanted it. Now I want that book. I want to try that book.
And then the other one, of course, is the new Batgirl with the new writer, which I'm reading some of her, just her own graphic novels, and she's pretty good. I like her a lot.
Yeah, Hope Larson.
Yeah, Hope Larson. And then the Superman one is the one that really intrigues me because they have a 2-page spread of like, what is it, 4 different Superman things, and 2 of them are women. One of them's Lois Lane and one of them's Supergirl, and both of those look amazing. And what is this Chinese Superman? Like, what is that? Can you explain that to me?
Well, he made his appearance in Batman Batman Superman.
He's kind of come about as a result of the New 52 Superman dying, and I think that's also probably going to be how they're going to explain the Superwoman.
Okay.
But he was sort of like this aspect of Superman. There were people that were gaining Superman's powers. And
in the Batman story, when he was dying, in the Superman story, he was dying, they touched on it a little.
Yeah, and there was a group that was trying to duplicate. There's like some scientists in China were trying to duplicate Superman's powers, and that's sort of what this new Chinese Superman is a result of. Because the Superwoman is the New 52's Lois. So, like, we have, like, the Lois and Clark in Superman now.
I was going to ask you, because I did not know.
Are the pre-Flashpoint Superman. the two that
Confused?
were the two that were married and had a child together.
Okay, so I thought it was
so
her.
So the Superwoman that we'll be getting in the new series coming up is Lois Lane, but not the one that's married to Clark.
So that's cool, because you just said that they didn't really do much with her in New 52.
Yeah,
Lois,
she got left
so
in the dust.
She got left in the dust because they wanted
They
to
did
push
make
that
her villainous
stupid.
for a short run.
Oh, what the bleep?
Yeah, she was possessed by Brainiac for a while, and then
and she even knew Clark's. This was before she revealed.
some boy
That's the part that
Dillhole.
I'm really. They look like that's how they're going to get out of it, but you know, when you reveal to the world that Superman is Clark Kent, that's a really big hill to get over. And it looks like they're going to do it. When
they have some fun elements now where they're playing around with that whole.
But that was the first thing. I was like, how are you going to get over
back in
that
the bottle.
one? Yeah, you don't have a devil-like figure that you can make a deal with and say one bad
Sure they
day.
do. Neron.
Has Neron been introduced?
No, could be. I don't know.
Well, I think
something that you did say that reminded me, like, okay, so the books are all $2.99.
Yeah.
But you know why? There are pages and pages and pages of ads in these books.
Yeah.
Which I'm okay with. I mean, $2.99 is...
Yeah.
But there really are a lot of ads.
They are. They're really trying to really promote their rebirth, which is actually the fact that I like it so much. It's working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I look at those ads, especially their ads. I mean, there's like 2 major ads in all these comics. One is them promoting all of their stuff, and the second is, why haven't you bought Overwatch yet? I mean, I feel like that's 3 pages of Overwatch. I'm like, I don't want it. But I do feel like they tailor them to each comic. Like I said, the Batman ones are all like, oh, here's some Batman characters, you know, like, oh, Batgirl, oh, this. And, yeah, it got my interest, and I'm like marking down my little calendar. I'm like, this is when this comes out, this is when this comes out.
When you mentioned Supergirl, and like, where they're trying to
I don't know what
tie things in more, where we see like the movie stuff being bled in, it looks like Supergirl is actually going to borrow a lot from the TV show, which I'm very...
Really
but is it
cool.
is it the New 52 Supergirl just rebranded, basically?
Yeah, because it's the Supergirl, like, she was in those final issues of
the Death,
Yeah.
And that's where, and I was wondering if that's the angle that she's going to take a more earthly type of tone. And
I think
alien.
she's affected by the loss of her cousin, and like New 52 Supergirl was kind of put in a difficult position for a while. I liked some of the things they did with it, but it alienated her from basically everything else.
It vilified her for a while. I mean, I really felt like she was like the bad guy every time I saw her. Like, I didn't like her as a character, not as the way she was written. I just like...
She's not as much of a villain as the actual sort of villain they made the last Supergirl we had.
That's true.
When she was controlled by Darkseid in the Superman Batman series.
But she was always like that, though. And I mean, not even like I wouldn't say she was evil, but she was just kind of misguided.
They made it, they've sort of, and it's some similar problems they had with the previous Supergirl, where they tried to introduce her as this sort of resentful young person who, I still hold all these Kryptonian values, and my planet's gone, and you didn't grow up with it like I did. Like the New 52 Supergirl, for like the first chunk of issues, she couldn't speak English. She could only speak the Kryptonese, which was interesting. But yeah, she was just more of an antagonistic character. I wouldn't call her villainous. She was often misled by things.
She felt
bratty, yeah, those types of things. So I'm hoping that the series and maybe the things that she's been through up to this point, because she was also just off the board for a long time until Superman found her in his